All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. Thank you, Jane. We are up and rolling on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube. And Jane was just reminding me, I've already forgotten about it, but I got a bruise this week playing basketball. And so I'm already used to it. Apparently it'll be still another week while it's here. So got it playing basketball. And if you don't believe that and think it was something more nefarious, then I'll just say you should see the other guy. Anyway, we're talking about your career is what we're focusing on. And I invite all questions, whether you are interviewing, whether you are building your resume or working through relationships in the office or in the workspace in the virtual environment. If you are looking to advance in your career, any questions career related are fair game. The approach that I take with things is my strong point is social and emotional intelligence, or soft skills. So helping you figure out how to talk about yourself, what your skills are, what your gifts are, that comes in handy for your resume and interviewing, and then also how to really make contact with the other people that you're talking to, during an interview or when you're networking, how to build rapport, how to build rapport with your boss or your team, and to create alignment where it's a win-win for your goals and their goals, and in helping you work through the challenges to have a common vision together. So that's a little introduction about me and the type of coaching that I can really help you with. Oftentimes we have folks that will be able to provide resources to specific things. So again, all questions career related are welcome. This week in particular, I'm talking about building connections genuinely. And so as we're developing in our careers, one of the most important things is our relationships. And how do we use our relationships to deepen our understanding of ourselves, as well as establish deeper contact and rapport with other people. So I would love questions from anybody about this topic, but if you don't have questions about it, that's fine. Feel free to share your questions. You can do it in a few ways. I love it when you're able to jump in on Zoom directly and I can talk one-to-one with you. If you can't do that, you can always type your question into the comment section on YouTube or in LinkedIn Live and send that in, and Jane will get that to me. I'll do my best to answer that. And if you want to be anonymous, even if you jump in here on Zoom and you have a question, but you don't want, you want to remain anonymous with that, just let me know. Just type in, keep this anonymous, send Jane a message, letting her know that. And I can get to that. So I've got, I got a question here from Eric about how well does a recruiter-only view work on LinkedIn when opening your profile up for role inquiries? Concerned about remaining hidden from my current company, especially while it's still a smallish company. Okay. How well does a recruiter... if you want to name anonymous on that, totally get it. If not,
I can provide. Well, so I guess I know. Yeah. So I know they state that they take steps, but I'm curious if there's been experiences either that you've heard from your clients or even others here on the call, what they've had with that, because I've used it before, but that was when I was part of a large.
That you used?
So when you're looking for roles, you can set your profile to, like open to whatever.
Okay.
And there's two options. You can do the one that a lot of people I imagine are using right now, that's, basically I've been laid off, I'm open to whatever. And then another option that, only where they attempt to show your profile only to recruiters. And they
Mhm.
do, they say that they do their best to keep you hidden from your current company, but of course they can't make any guarantees. So I was just curious what's been other folks' experiences, especially since I've used it before, but that was when I was part of a large conglomerate company that had, tens of thousands of employees versus a much smaller enterprise that I'm a part of now. That's, you know, uh,
Yeah, okay.
you know,
Great
a few
question.
hundred people.
If anybody's listening in who knows more, has more detail about how LinkedIn works with that, please share. Please share. Because I think, that'd be interesting to know. From a different standpoint, what I would say is it's probably a good thing to do, especially if you can be in some conversation with your employer about you wanting to, develop and that you're looking at things. That is going to tend to, well, let me get your response to that, Eric. What do you think about that?
I mean, I've already, like, I've been making several pushes to grow internally, but, those have been less than successful. So I figured, why not look externally and see what
Well,
happens from there.
what do you think would happen if somebody, let's say they were digging around and noticed that, and you've been clear that you are looking to develop?
Yeah, I think they would probably let my current manager know, and I would imagine it. Well, again, this is just conjecture. I think it'd be a case where you need to, I strongly suggest that you stop that. Otherwise, we'll terminate you. Uh, I could see that as kind of like, this is your warning to stop doing that. And then if you don't, we'll, you know, terminate you. That's my personal guess
Mm-hmm.
as to what happened or what would happen. So that's my fear, is that, I do that, and then they may not even be a warning shot. It may just
Mm-hmm.
be, the walkout. I don't know, but it would not be, I think, very positively received if they were to find out. Let's put it that way.
Well, what would feel good to you?
I think if I had anecdotes from others who have done the profile or selected that option, and they've been in, smallish, mediumish size enterprises, but they were still able to stay hidden enough that they didn't have somebody internally approaching them about it. If I had several other anecdotal evidence from other folks who experienced that, I think that would make me feel a lot better about doing that option. Now, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, if I can't use that option, it'd be kind of a bummer, even though I know, probably be a lot of junk that'll come in, of course. Here's these 12-month contract roles for a logistics analyst that
Mm-hmm.
I have no interest in, but be at least a nice other lever that I could pull. So it's just more curious to gauge others' insights, as we have any, on how that has worked for others. But if I'm not able to use it, or if I don't feel comfortable using that lever, it's not going to be that big of a deal, honestly.
Got it. Yeah. So I would, yeah, again, if anybody's listening in and has experience with that, I'd love to hear. To blow it up a little bigger, Eric, the way I'm looking at it is, well, my hunch with it and maybe overall context of career development is, I think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Given that companies tend to not have the greatest hiring process. There are companies
Right.
who do, but that tends to be put on the back burner of a lot of things. And so it's unlikely that somebody would be like kind of looking around in that way.
Right. Right.
And also the benefit of, you know, putting yourself out there, so to speak, and getting a sense of what the playing field is, what your value is, you know, I think that that's a pretty good thing to do, to know, to get a better and better sense of what your value is, what you need to develop, etc.
Right. Right.
You know, so that's my thoughts on it overall. Again, if anybody's listening in and knows more specifics, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I was just curious about that. Otherwise, in terms of, I guess, networking, building relationships, as a generally introverted individual, my advice would be you just have to start putting yourself out there, because it'll be uncomfortable at first, but you eventually get over it, and it just becomes another side of yourself that you can use. Then you can go back home and watch ESPN clips on YouTube or do whatever else.
I love it. Eric, wait, would you share a little bit with people about your journey in this over the last year?
Yeah. So, well, are you talking about with that or like internal growth or
with you
whatever?
Transitioning from, I think you bottom lined it wonderfully. And I'm going to set a little context, and then I would love for you to share more about it. But we have perceptions of ourselves. I'm an introvert. I don't network. I'm uncomfortable being around people. And yeah, that's totally true. Fine. And what I heard you just say is like, well, I can go a little outside of my comfort zone, go to a few more meetings, make a point of talking to people, and shift that a little bit. And if I shift that a little bit over even the course of a year, it can have, pretty big benefits to me.
Yeah, and I think there was it's interesting. There was a book I read. I know Susan Cain is the author. I can't remember the book of it, but and it's kind of, I think, centered around introverts, especially in a professional environment, and how to really succeed and thrive in that kind of environment. And she talked about, you could kind of maybe interpret it maybe a bit controversially, but almost having a more developed extroverted side of yourself, where you kind of, I know you've talked about like being more like an ambivert, I think is maybe a better way to describe it, where I can still go home, do my other stuff, read, watch replays of college football games on YouTube, whatever, by myself, but still have the side that I can chat it up with when I run into our VP of supply chain in the hallway, or I have to lead a call and explain stuff to people, where I have to do a training session, cross training session, where I have to get up and present to my peers about what I do and how to do all that. So it's, you're not necessarily developing a separate personality. We're not going down the path of becoming a sociopath or psychopath. Let's we don't want to do that, but you kind of, I guess, develop a new set of skills. Let's put it that way.
I think that's well said, Eric. That it's no matter who I am, with what my personality is I can develop new skills. I could say for the extrovert, it may be important for an extrovert to learn the skill of spending several hours alone so they can go deep into thought and planning, and that might be something important for them to do. Am I on point with that, Eric?
Yeah, it's just another set of skills you develop. You don't necessarily, you could still be true to yourself, but still have that side where, I forget, there was one day where there was like some high level meetings going on, and the senior VP that I had, kind of made the connection with, looking for that one internal role, ended up being there and stopped by my desk to chat with me, which was, again, completely unexpected, but I was able to chat up with them, see how everything's going, talk shop, kind of, now it's on a smaller scale, but it has that set of skills where, you're not necessarily shying away from that. You're able to kind of embrace that, talk it up with them, have that small talk, versus kind of being like, okay, yep, it's good. Bye. Let me go back to my world.
Yes. So. Okay, well, cool. Thank you, Eric. So I want to catch Drew up. Welcome, Drew. Good to have you here. So
great to be here. Thanks so much.
We're talking about well, there's a couple things, and I would love to get your thoughts on something Eric brought up earlier. But overall, we're looking at building your connections genuinely and networking. And Eric was bringing up the point about, if I'm an introvert, I don't have to think of it as changing my personality into becoming an extrovert, but I can just learn some skills and get myself through the time of connecting with people, chatting up, and knowing, okay, I'm going to have the time where I can go, have my alone time, my nourishing time, my secure base time where I can really ground myself. And so we were just talking about that some, and I think that's a great point, Eric, that it's, the idea of having to be a different person, I think is overstretching and scary and not necessary to get into that. We can just look at developing skills of making contact with people, how to talk, engage in a way that's effective with people. So thank you. And then, there was a question earlier about recruiters and the option on LinkedIn of putting yourself as open to work, and then also just making it so that recruiters only can see that you're open to work. And I don't know, Drew, if you know any more about that on LinkedIn and sort of how secure that is. But
yeah. Well, sorry, George, was there another part of that as well?
No, let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the whole, you're dealing with algorithms, automatic algorithms that are, at this point, I would say, fairly secure. The idea is that recruiters with Sales Navigator are going to have access to and Sales Navigator is the paid version of LinkedIn, where you have unlimited access to search LinkedIn for profiles and people, and all the filters are unlocked and all of that. So it's a much more robust.
I want to underline that, Drew. That means, for everybody listening in with this question, that means that somebody would have to be paying extra to have access there. So it would have to be very intentional and part of their business. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not just anybody that has recruiter as their role, on their LinkedIn profile. It's much more it's more secure than that. It's recruiters that are using it, and and so I guess one question would be if somebody in your company has Sales Navigator. If it's a small company, you probably know that. I imagine LinkedIn has guardrails in place where if George and I work for the same company, he has Sales Navigator, I have it open to connect with recruiters. The algorithm won't show George me because we're in the same company. Like it won't pop up there.
That is how it works. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we got confirmation there. So that security is pretty well set. The other part of the question is like, how well does it work? And for me, so much of that is how well you set up your profile. How are you describing yourself in your subheader, in your description? How are you describing the roles that you've had, and make sure you're using keywords for your industry that people are going to pick up on. Make sure the locations are accurate and all that stuff, because recruiters are going to be looking at all those specifics when they're sifting through literally hundreds of, or if not thousands of potential leads. So you're safe to say that you can definitely use it. You shouldn't run into any problems, but the real strategy is figuring out how you want to develop the profile to get the most out of the eyeballs that you're going to receive once you turn that feature on.
And I have a pro tip. I've been using that feature. I've been using the LinkedIn free trials on and off for as long as I can remember. But I finally, and in that time, I was looking for jobs and stuff like that. So I think it gives you like 30-day free trials a lot of the times. And in that time, when you turn on that feature, and you're worried that someone at your current job is going to see, you can see anyone who looks at your profile if you have that, if you have the free trial of premium. So that way you can literally see if people are looking, and sometimes they won't tell you the person, but it'll tell you the company, or vice versa. So you'll know if someone, then you have a kind of a heads up if someone does catch you or something like that. So that's another safeguard that you could do. And I know LinkedIn's expensive for the premium, but it does have its benefits. And that's why I like to use their free trials whenever they have that promotion available.
Well, thank you, Steph. That's great info to have. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, fantastic. So, Eric, I think we are getting a lot of support for your question. Thank you for asking. And, that's another aspect of this career lab, is that your questions are gifts, because there's a bunch of people that have the same question. And so I invite you to share, to ask questions. Again, if you have any questions and you can't jump in directly on this link, you can always type your questions into the comment section, and Jane will get those over to me and we'll do our best to answer. So great to have you, Steph and Howard. Wondering if there's any questions that you have.
Thank you. And I'm glad I caught you a little bit before this Zoom. I guess I do have a question. I am currently looking for new opportunities. I am a grant writer as one of my titles or hats. But I want to work more, and that is one of the places that I see the most demand on as a freelance grant writer. And so right now, and while I'm still currently employed at the nonprofit I work at, plus also getting numerous requests to see if I would write grants for other nonprofits and other organizations. The only reason that it stopped me, I just don't know the legality of it. Like, if it's like a conflict of interest, if I'm I don't know all of that. And I know I can get set up on like Fiverr and Startup and all of those freelancing places. But like, I guess similar to what Eric had, I'm afraid that my job is going to find out that I am a freelance grant writer, helping nonprofits in our area get the same type of, not the same type of funding, but similar funding that our nonprofit that I'm getting for my nonprofit. So that's where I'm like, ooh, see, that could be a little conflict of interest, because I'm kind of working for both sides, if that makes sense.
I get that. What do you suspect?
I suspect that if I go for specific grants that I'm currently working on with my nonprofit, and then I go on the other side and say they have a grant renewal, a competition happening, and I'm working with my nonprofit now, and I'm doing a freelancer job, and I take the freelancer job, that's another like competition, then that's when it would be an issue. That's what I feel like is the answer, but I have no confirmation or any expertise or experience with that.
What's your
Do you
relationship
mind
like? Oh, go ahead.
It's Howard. So I've been involved in big businesses and small businesses, and I can tell you that anytime that you feel there might be some double indemnity, meaning that you're feeling squishy about it, nine times out of 10, you're right.
Right.
Right. You can't play both sides of the coin. Right. I mean, if you do that and somebody who is your supervisor calls you in and says, okay, so you're playing the Eagle side of the quarter and the Washington side of the quarter, how, right? What are you doing? Right. You're walking down the road to either some sort of program, right, for them to be able to trust you again, or expulsion. Okay, you can't. Like here. So I'm in the creative industry. I just left a gig where I was the VP creative and communications, right? And I have people who work for me who have freelance, like side hacks where they were developing websites for other clients, right? And I found out about one, and I said to them, and they showed me the website, and we were dealing with commercial real estate with the company that I was with, but he was building a website for somebody who made cannabis edibles, right? Apples and malteds, no big deal, right? Just make sure your time is being spent on the jobs that we're paying you for. And if you want to work on a Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have a couple of beers and work for your friends, that's cool. But, right, if you are working both sides of or competitively, the outcome of that is never going to be what you think it's going to be, right?
Right. Okay.
Howard, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Right. There's difference between side hack. I live in the land of side hack, right? Every creative person I've ever met has a client on the side, right? They're doing logo, they're doing web stuff, they're doing corrections, they're copywriting, right? As long as you're not, it's not affecting your performance for the business that you're being paid for, which is working for me, right? And or for the company that we're working for, and you have time to do it, go ahead. I mean, listen,
Howard, this is fantastic. I want to hear Steph's response.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, thank you, Howard. It is fantastic. And yeah, and I completely agree. Like, I do feel like it's not. And that's why I feel underutilized at my job. And that's why I'm looking to be a freelancer. And specifically at this time, which I guess leads to another question. I don't know if I want to say it, but I'm having some ADA issues with my current job. And I was out for a while, like 2 months on medical leave. In the last 2-3 weeks, I didn't get paid because I ran out of, pay time off. And so it's just a lot of things happening at once. So my job and I are not like at the best. We're probably like at a 7 out of 10 on like tension wise. But I don't even know what I was saying. But this insight does make me feel better, and I feel like I am on the right track because I also work in compliance, so I know about a little bit, but that's more like federal government, like federal grants, federal things like that, working with the government. So that's even way more strict. And I think I'm making it more intense in my head than it actually is.
Okay.
Is what I feel like I'm doing.
And Steph, the overarching strategy that I recommend is relationship, and your relationship with your supervisor or whoever, where you're at, and letting them know that, about where you're underutilized or where, and getting to the spot where, if like what Howard was saying, where it's like, hey, I've got this other stuff, and they might actually send you things and say, oh, this could be for your side hustle. If you had that level of rapport,
right.
And that if even if you don't have it at the moment, but to hold that as the vision, the goal of what you're always moving towards.
Right. Okay.
All of your relationships, it might not
like
happen
that
over the next week. It might be something that takes some, months or years for you to really develop. But just as you are,
I think it's more a couple of months.
Human.
I think you're right along the same lines of that's perfect. Thank you for mentioning that, because I did have a conversation with my supervisor, not along the same lines, but about how I just feel at this current moment with my organization.
Okay.
So I literally had that conversation yesterday with the highest person at this agency that I could. So yeah, I think so. That's why I feel like now getting that answer about the freelancer plus this establishing a relationship with my current employer, I feel like I can then transition into exactly what I want, of freelancing and still having a job, but more maybe instead of me being a full-time salaried employee worker for my company, I could be like a contractor, and that would be perfect and play out with all of my other responsibilities.
Whoa. Okay.
I just thought of that right now, like, because I feel like they've done that before for counselors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks guys. I just came up with the plan.
Steph, that's exciting, and I think I want to totally hear from Drew on Drew, your path to what you're doing now was not like Steph's, but you're getting to is you're kind of in maybe a similar field here, and I'd love to hear what you've been working on, Drew, and anything that you can add.
Yeah, definitely a similar situation. I mean, I was in the corporate world, working for a W-2 full-time position, dedicated responsibilities, and then moved into the consulting world, where the contract work, the short-term projects, and that decision to move from the safety and security of a full-time position with benefits to moving to freelancing, consulting, and kind of the chaos and craziness of that was one. Took me about 3 months to make that decision. I'd say maybe even a little bit longer, 3 to 4 months before I was really comfortable. And there's the thing I'll say about that is there's a lot to consider in terms of how much business you think you could get initially, and what the revenue would be for that, and would it supplement or replace what you'd be giving up by losing the full term position, and running the numbers on that and running the math on it was a huge part of what I did, and the reason I felt comfortable making the move is because I had 3 clients that I knew that I could engage with and get at least a short term contract with if I decided to open my own LLC and take that plunge. And that was for me the security that I needed. But in terms of running those numbers and putting together sort of like a business plan of how many clients you would need a month, how many grants you would need to write, my biggest advice is whatever you think you can do, cut it down by at least 25 to 30%. Because they're not all going to close, and the security, the people are really quick to say, oh yeah, I'd love to work with you. But then when it comes to actually closing the deal and getting the revenue, it's a whole nother ballgame. So just being like uber conservative and cautious on what you'd expect, But I can tell you, it's one of the most satisfying things that I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a ball of stress, but I'm learning more about myself, and I've been more creative and just enthusiastic about my work than I have been in a very, very long time. So there's a lot of benefits to it if it's the right move for you, but there is just a lot to consider. So
yeah, and it's something I appreciate that, Drew, because it's something that I have considered. I think on the lower end, like more like not as aggressive, but something over the last year. But now opportunities have come where it's kind of bringing it up to like, oh, maybe I should consider this. And then the situation with my job where I'm at right now, ADA wise, and just that whole process is hard in general. So maybe I shouldn't just even go through it and just maybe find another avenue that could benefit both parties. So.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I appreciate you, Howard. I appreciate you, George, and Drew for your insight. This was really great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, sweet. I'm going to do a quick room reset. I do want to check in with you, Howard, on that thing, and there's a question coming in. But this is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm here every Wednesday, noon to 1 Central Time. And what I do is I answer to the best of my ability any questions that I can regarding career. My strong suit is social and emotional intelligence and soft skills, and how that plays out in developing the relationships in your network, in your job, etc. And so any questions are invited, whether you are interviewing, working on your resume, or developing as a leader within your company, working on your relationship with your team, your boss, whatever. Or if you're at a point where you're like, what am I really doing? What could I be doing that would be more satisfying? What's my next steps that would really turn me on in my life and career? All of that's fair game. No question too small, no question too big. You can jump in directly here on Zoom. I love it when you do that, and I get to talk to you directly. If you can't do that, you can always type your questions in. Great, Steph. Thank you. You can always type your questions into the comment section, and Jane will get those over. And so, Howard, I'd love to hear more from you. Before that, though, I do want to address Usman's question. Thank you, Usman. It's going well here. If you weren't on at the beginning, this is just either you should see the other guy, but really what happened, I was playing basketball and knocked my face on the back of somebody's head, and so you'll probably see this even next week, because apparently black eyes stay around for 2 weeks. Anyway, Usman, you're asking a question. I am doing well, thank you. And emotional intelligence, what's a good book for improving emotional intelligence? Well, Usman, you've asked a question, and you're probably going to get a lot of books, a lot of suggestions, because I've got plenty, and I bet Drew does too. We both have our masters in transformational leadership and coaching, and social and emotional intelligence is a key part of that. So, quick answer to that. The kind of godfather of emotional intelligence, the guy who coined the term, is Daniel Goldman. His book called Emotional Intelligence. It's a great place for research and understanding kind of the value of emotional intelligence. In terms of application, I actually think the best book is a book called The Heart of the Fight, written by Doctors Bob and Judith Wright. They pull together a lot of research and bring it together in a way that makes it very understandable and easy to apply to any of your relationships with your wife, partner, children, family, friends, that realm, or at work. They have the 7 rules of engagement in there, and this is a book that I have referred back to so many times, especially as I've done a lot of research and kind of know it works and know I can trust it. and have seen great results. So that's where I will start. There's a whole lot in between there. And Drew, I would love to hear any recommendations that you have for Usman.
Yeah, I think those two are a fantastic place to start. What's cool about The Heart of the Fight too, even though it's billed as a book about like arguments that couples have, you could read that book and put yourself in the shoes of both people and like basically treat yourself like a couple. Like, how am I having these fights internally with myself? Basically, my internal dialogue versus where I see myself and where I want to be. So it takes a little imagination, but it's a great lens to read that book from. A couple other sort of ones that maybe aren't quite as obvious. Phil Jackson's Sacred Hoops, coach of the Chicago Bulls from in the 90s. He's got some great stuff in there that I find very applicable to life and relationships and decision making and bringing emotions and emotional awareness into what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm just looking down at my library. The Courage to be Disliked, and I don't know the author's name off the top of my head, but if you search the Courage to be Disliked, it's a Japanese book that focuses on Adlerian psychology, and it's done in a dialogue format, sort of like Socrates, and I think, again, from an application and like an ease of understanding, it's a great place to start. And it's the kind of book that you can kind of open and look at any page at any point and get something out of it. It's a running dialogue between a teacher and their student. And it's all about building personal power and awareness and a lot of applied emotional intelligence. So yeah, those are the two that I would start with. But yeah, like George said, there are many out there, and once you get into it, the recommendations just keep flowing. So
Drew, thank you.
Yeah,
and Usman, let us know how it goes. Let us know what you think of I suspect you'll read Heart of the Fight. Highly recommend it. You'll get value for your lifetime out of that book. Let us know how it goes.
and George, I gotta bounce out. I apologize for being a little late, but it was great to be with everybody. Some really awesome questions. I'll be excited to watch the recording and hear more about what Howard's up to and what his goals are, moving out of that role. I think that's a big question for a lot of us right now. So you all have a great Wednesday.
Sweet. Thank you, Drew. Good to see you, man. Okay, well, welcome, Albert. Be thinking about any questions you have, how I can support you in any way, but I want to check in with Howard. Howard, if you're able to tell us a little bit about, where you're at. You are now networking, and looking to help as you are. I'm presuming you're looking for next projects or whatever, but what's going on?
So I am looking for my next job.
Okay.
I'll just give you the quick history. I've been in the creative industry my entire career, which is 30 some odd years. I've worked my way up from, the beginning all the way to, VP, multiple people, client interface, the whole nine. I have a great deal of experience in a bunch of different industries, which was kind of just the way things happen for me. I don't know how else to explain that, which is great because, now I can move into, it's easier to shift gears. I'm looking for another VP gig or CMO or, where I can use all of the stuff that I've packed in for the last 30 years. I like listening to people. I like helping people kind of come up with solutions like we did with the young lady who we just spoke to. I've really been around corporations and corporate think for a very long time. So I kind of know how to navigate a little bit, and I wanted to share that with her. And it's the truth. If you're getting squishy in your mind, it's squishy. That's right. Don't do it. Just try to, and I'm looking.
It always serves to usually deserves to have the converse to notice, okay, who am I afraid to talk to about this? And, you know, in one way or another, end up talking to them about it and confronting the anxieties in bite-sized ways, as opposed to trying to, you know, make a decision, a big decision kind of behind the scenes and hope nothing bad happens. Because that, you know, chances of that going well are slim, and at the end of it, you don't feel good about it anyway.
No, and why, and you know, and the risk that you've taken, you know, there's could hardly be any reward on the backside of that.
Yeah.
So I'm, you know, out here again in the job market. You know, I'm not young, so that's a little bit of a, you know, a worry to me. Not as much as it used to be, because a lot of the senior positions that I see out there, you know, in it are asking for 15, 18 years of experience now, not like 5 years and have you, you know, they're looking for people who are a little bit more seasoned, because I think the expectation is that, you know, that with bringing people along, right? So I don't know, unless somebody is really, really learned in the beginning of their career, or in the, you know what I mean, and who can act as a mentor and bring people, you know, I think that's a big change now, right? Because of the remote, and, you know, I've spent 2 years of my life, or a little bit more, working in my office at my home, you know, and have mentored quite a few people, not because I've been told to, but because I think it's necessary. You know what I mean? And that's, you know, and I still want to do that, you know, and I reach out to people all the time. I network with whomever I feel needs help. That's really what's been happening, you know. Are
you making it clear that you're looking for work?
Oh, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I have the green ring around my neck on LinkedIn.
Are you mentioning it in your phone calls and Zoom meetings, etc.?
Yeah. Everybody knows that I'm on the street, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to tell you that, you know, and if people ask me why I was let go for very good reason. Company ran into some financial trouble. The owner of the company decided to take the creative portion back to himself, because he needed to save the dough. And I'm cool with that. He and I, you know, he settled up with me like a real man. I do have to say that. You know,
but you've got a good referral there.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, and I'm, you know, so I'm on to the next thing. I'm actually looking at bigger companies now, because there's a little bit less stress on the dollars and cents of things, you know, and that's really where I'm at, you know. And as far as the networking goes, I'm looking to, like, you know, what groups might be right for me, and what, you know, like, this is really cool, right? I got to help somebody out of the box, you know. And, you know, and that's really where I want to, like I said earlier, where I want to be at, you know. I want to share that with,
you know, Howard. I think Drew, who is just on his process that he went through, kind of getting to where he is now, one of the things he talked about was being able, basically his elevator pitch, being able to say what he is, who he is, what he's doing, very succinctly, and being able to share that with a lot of people. Well, how are you doing on that?
You know, my elevator pitch is pretty good, you know.
Okay.
You know, I'm not afraid to tell people that I've been around. I'm not afraid to tell people that I've been in every nook and cranny of creative. I am a creative operations animal, you know, and I have had a successful career of, not just of building businesses.
Now, can you give me what you want in a company in 2 to 3 sentences right now?
I'd like the chance to help build a business and build a department that can move the company forward and service the clients to the best of our ability. Right? That's really where I'm at.
How do you feel about what you just said? And
that's what I said. I feel comfortable with it because I use that a great deal.
How's it working for you?
I have an interview. I'm waiting for them to. I have an interview with a pretty big company that I'm waiting for them to. It's scheduled the 2nd, so it's gotten me this far.
Okay.
And I lead. A lot of the stuff that they ask, for at my level is like, what's your leadership style, right? That seems to be a very big, like some big buzzwords, right? And it's just, and for me, it's really a culmination of 3 things, right? It's empathy, engagement, and empowerment. And I have led that way my entire career, and I've been pretty damn good at it. I listen, I care, I help you come up with the solution, because it's, when push comes to shove, if you're not believing it, it's not a real solution, because there's no follow through. And that's really, and that's been, and that's pretty well thought out. I've taken disc tests, and I've taken, all of, and that's really, that leadership quality and that listening, being able to listen and be able to, as I call it, clearing the fog, right? And being able to pull out the salient points and help has been something that I've been able to do. And, and it's helped get me to where I am now.
Cool. Howard, are you interested in any feedback?
Sure. That's why I'm here.
Well, I think you might be able to add in something about your personal value. You're clearly a guy that cares a great deal. I can just feel that from talking to you. And so in your pitch, identifying a word or a phrase that you help take companies towards, that might help in terms of people, thinking of you more, and also sparking a conversation around that. How does that sound? Do you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It sounds great,
And there's something about you, and like, I don't even know if you've said this or not, but like that you have people working together well, or like there's something in that I'm picking up on that.
So so I believe in coaching, right? And everybody working together, right? That's a very big, that's one of my personal values. And it's funny, Usman was asking about, right? So aside, like if you read John Wooden's book, and Phil Jackson's book, and Bill Walsh's book, right? It's the relationship between the people has to be civil, your group, right? The players on the squad. And then they have to care about each other. And once that is kind of manifest itself, that's why you're able to be the wizard of at UCLA, right? Is for umpteen years, and being able to, right, and using different people, right? He went from who he had before Kareem, then to Bill Walton, and then
totally. So these are some good examples, Howard. And another thing that I was thinking of is as you're doing this, you may end up doing consulting as an onboard, while onboarding to a company. I don't know if you're experiencing that. I'm not quite sure where you're at in your job search phase.
So I'm doing a lot of the, so I'm doing a lot. I'm taking a course now in fractional CMO.
Okay.
That seems to be like in my line of work. That seems to be the new buzzword, right? Bringing somebody fresh with some fresh ideas, and then use them for 90 days, and then go back, use and then have somebody have them not help you come up with the solutions for your go forward. So I am, consulting is not something I'm not thinking of. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. I think that's great. Also, I just saw some feedback from somebody listening in about your elevator pitch that you might want to take a look at in the chat. And we're coming up on the end of the hour, so I do have to jump in just a few minutes. And Albert, I want to check in with you. Howard, thank you so much for joining in, for your support.
Absolutely.
And sharing about yourself and your journey with us. I think this is fantastic. I'm excited to see what you do, where you go. So keep in touch. I would love to have you back.
I'll see you guys next week, probably.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Howard.
Thank
Albert, what's
Sir,
going
yes.
on? Welcome.
Well, George, thanks for taking the time. I think it's really kind of you to do this for all of us. Yeah, I mean, kind of similar situation as Howard. I've been in product management, had a really interesting background because I went from technical to business to product. I've actually done consulting as well. And better part of my career has been consulting, but it was consulting when somebody would just hire you like a contract for a year, and then you're to the next thing, right? So I have a really interesting bag of tricks. I've worked in 17 different industries, and all the way from fintech to healthcare to pharma to technology, right? And then I have the other bag of tricks, which I have technology, digital marketing, which I own a company for 15 years, and then product management. So I'm like really at a crossroads where, just like Howard, and I was laid off. This is my second layoff this year in 25 years of work.
Wow.
So, but I think the economy is really, we had a private equity firm that laid off 30% of the workforce, right? 3 months after hiring me. So that's okay. But this is kind of question, like it's got me at this crossroads, like you were saying, about what to do next, right? Actually, it's funny that Howard mentioned that, a couple of my friends have done this fractional CMO thing. And that I'm like trying to figure out beyond networking. Just feels like the way that people are getting jobs these days, it's like you start seeing, hate to say it like this, but it's one thing to make yourself available for work on LinkedIn. And then I even see contention on LinkedIn with people that really open up themselves and they're really vulnerable and say what the work is, the layoff is doing for them. And then you go through this process of submitting applications, and you see like 600 candidates to one. And so it begins to feel like a downward trend. And just something intuitively inside of me says, there's got to be a better way than this. We all know that the best way to get a job is through networking, but even there's some sort of numbness that is going on around that, to the point that, you have like overload of people helping you or asking you. So I would love to see or to hear, and I'll possibly be interested in.
What do you mean an overload of people helping you?
Basically, there's, when you have a lot of layoffs and whatnot, right? I mean, we've really gone through this digital transformation, whereas before there's a lot of relationships, networking. In fact, I mean, I'm 53, right? So you used to go to events and whatnot, and that still works. But now with LinkedIn being what it is, just kind of transform itself to be not just a networking tool, but also a marketing tool. But what I see is like when you have your group of friends, right, and you're constantly hitting them up for like, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? And there might be other 5 or 6 or 7 people asking them the same thing. It just feels like that process, as I thought through myself as a user, is like, how many times have I actually helped?
Okay, I'm glad you're okay. So I think what's going on, and I'm so sorry I have to jump, but
No, it's fine.
let's talk more about it. I would love to book a time with me. There's a 15-minute link to my calendar, but I think very quickly LinkedIn is only going to help so far, and talking with those people and meeting face to face and that kind of thing is going to be way better. Because you're right, on LinkedIn and putting out and asking for help and those connections there, it's a very, very narrow spot, and it's only going to go so far.
Extremely. Well, I just booked a time with you for tomorrow at 8:30. So thank you for your time. Howard, thank you for sharing what you did. It was really helpful for me to hear that. Let me know if I can support you in any way, Howard.
Cool, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
See you tomorrow.